Good morning, people. I want to take you today to Exodus chapter 3 for our next great connection. We've dealt with the stories of they come around in Genesis, and we've learned a lot about forgiveness and generational blessings that pass down from good examples and courageous people. But we come now to the book of Exodus, and we find the nation of Israel once again in a lot of trouble. They're slaves in Egypt. They're in bondage. They've been there for 400 years. 10 generations have gone by. They're walking like Egyptians, talking like Egyptians, doing business like Egyptians. And then all of a sudden God says, I can't take this anymore. And so he meets with a guy by the name of Moses. You know his story. Moses ends up in a desert as a shepherd boy to his father-in-law's sheep. He's 80 years old, and he's written himself off. He says, there's no future for me. I'm done. I'm dusted. Oh, the glory days of Egypt were there, and I was Pharaoh's chosen favorite one. And then I messed up and I killed somebody and I had to run. And now I'm just paying the consequences for my mess ups. And so we see Moses bemoaning his fate, playing the victim in the middle of the Midian desert. And he's, as I said, 80 years old. And then one day the strangest things happen. And you can read about it in the book of Exodus chapter 3, where Moses was doing his normal daily duty of caring for the sheep when he saw the strangest of sights. He saw a tree that was on fire. It wasn't unusual, but what was unusual was this fire was not burning up this tree. This tree was sustaining in the midst of the fire. And he thought, man, that's unusual. So he went off and he climbed close to this tree and he looked at it, and suddenly, for goodness sake, a voice came out of this tree that said, Moses, Moses, take off your shoes. You're on holy ground. Now, the thing I want to pick up on today is never write yourself off. You know, there is a place called holy ground where very often God meets people who have written themselves off, and he redirects them, he reimpassions them, he refocuses them, he rekindles the fire that they once had, and it all happens on this place called holy ground. Now, holy ground is an interesting place because it is generally the most unusual of places. Like, who would have thought that this great connection between Moses and God would take place in a desert under a tree that was on fire, and the voice of God would declare that to be holy ground? I find it amazing that God often appears in the strangest of places. We tend to think, well, God's never going to meet me here. If I'm going to meet with God, I better go and sit in some little holy place or some little church somewhere or some little religious setting. But people, I don't know about you, but I've experienced a little bit of this. How God speaks at the point of the mundane. God speaks at the point of just the same old dry desert experience. Then all of a sudden, the voice of God declares that dry ground to be holy ground. Now, I don't know about you, but I think I've had one or two holy ground experiences, not quite like Moses's, of course, but I've had a few experiences where I just say, God, where did you come from? You're not meant to appear here. When you appear at a hospital bed, you know, I'm in the hospital and I'm thinking to myself, well, what's God doing here? This is not the place where I would expect God to meet with us in the pulpit or in worship at church or something. But God has a way of appearing in the strangest places. Now look at your life, and maybe you saying to yourself, well, listen, I've kind of messed up a bit, and I'm paying for it. I've been red carded in life, and God's given me the red card, and I'm out of the game. Well, don't ever think you've been red carded. God will never issue a red card to you. He may issue a yellow card and put you in the sin bin for a little while, but after a while you can get out of there, get on with life. And that's the beauty of what God does. The sin bin is where we all go from time to time, do we not? But even in the sin bin, we can find holy ground. In fact, have a look at Scripture and see how many times this happens. Prodigal son, he's in sin bin, holy ground. We find that Joseph in the sin bin on holy ground, and he hadn't sinned, everybody had sinned against him. But the holy ground place is a place where God appears at the strangest of times. Now, if you want a beautiful parallel for that in the Christmas story, think of Mary, the mom of Jesus. Here's this 16-year-old kid just getting on with her life. Same old, nothing new, nothing exciting, nothing happening in her life. Just the same old, draw the water, take it back, wash the dishes, go back, do the same thing again. Well, one day in the midst of the mundane, God speaks to her and she finds herself on holy ground. Go and read in the book of Luke and how the angel Gabriel came and said, Mary, you're the chosen one. And she says, surely not, how could I be? How could this be that I could be mother to the Son of God? How could this be? But that's a question you ask when you're on holy ground. So I've said a few things about this, but I want to encourage you. Never write yourself off, people. Never think that you've gone too far. Never think that God does not remember you. He remembers you good. Remember, like Samson's pushing the donkey's thing around, grinding out enemies' corn, and he finds himself to be on holy ground. Now, if those guys found that, and it's in the Bible to say, hey guys, this could be you one day. So I don't know what you're going through in your life. I really haven't a clue. Whether it be feast or famine or sadness or peril or whatever, look for God, because he has the ability to appear at the most unique times and in the strangest places. I really hope that this Christmas time he finds you and that you will find him to be all that we know that he is. So have a good day. Keep an eye open for God. He might be a lot closer than you think. Cheers, guys. Bye now.